Welcome back to the Eversio Experience podcast. I'm Desiree and I'm joined here with my co-host Brandi Garden. Today we are talking all about the immune system. So if you want an introduction into our brand story and how Eversio Wellness came to be, go back to previous episodes. That's episode 1. So today we're talking all about the immune system, Brandi.
We are. And I think it's a great one to follow the previous episode, all about the human brain. And I think when we look at the immune system, it's probably the most complex biological system we know after the human brain. So if the brain is our first love to talk about, for sure the immune system is the next. And it is a complex system, and we don't really have to know everything about it. What we really need to know is its job is to prevent infection. It's to prevent us from getting sick and prevent harmful things, viruses, bacteria, parasites, even abnormal cells like cancer cells from affecting us. So it consists of organs, and that's the thymus and the spleen. So some bigger organs, and then cells and proteins, tiny little guys inside of us, like an army that all work together in synergy to just keep us well. And the interesting thing is that as long as your immune system is running smoothly, you don't even notice that it's there. And I think that is our experience for so much of our life. We just, of course, as kids, we don't think about the immune system and what's happening inside of us. We just know we feel great and then we don't feel great. Somebody takes care of us. Magically, we're better again and we go on with life. As we get older, it becomes more inconvenient when we become ill because we can't do the things we love. We can't go to work. We can't be around people who we rely on for connection in our lives. And it can be really significant for us. So I think that makes it important to learn about. You know, I love an analogy.
Give it
So
to us.
when I think about the immune system, I think about it like a defense force protecting a city. So like these special forces. So if our body is this bustling city, then the immune system is its defense force. And it really is two subsystems within that defense force. You can almost think of like the police and the military maybe. And the first part of the system is the innate immune system. And if this system had a logo or a slogan, I would say it's like born ready. So the innate immune system is non-specific. It is immediately able to act on pathogens. It reacts to anything different or strange that it detects within the body. Thank goodness. We need this to happen all of the time, because if you cut yourself when you're chopping vegetables on a cutting board and you have that open wound, you don't have time to stop making dinner or living your life. You don't even realize the millions of things that go down inside of your body to stop that little incident from creating havoc in your life, and all of the things that are amazingly going on inside of you to stop that from becoming infected and making you sick. So that really brings us to that first line defense of the innate immune system, and that's the physical barriers of it. And if we were in a city, this would be like the city walls and the gates, or like the castle walls if your city has castles. So just like cities have walls and gates to keep out intruders, your body has barriers like your skin and your mucous membranes that prevent the pathogens from getting in. So keeping your skin healthy then is really important. And we actually have mushrooms for that, which is something I don't even think about. But we've been talking about a mushroom a lot lately here at Eversio HQ for skin health. Yeah. And I was talking recently how I'm headed for my 50s, and I'm so grateful that I don't have to do much else for my skin because I take a lot of mushrooms. Do you want to talk quickly, Desiree, about the mushrooms that would be important for this skin barrier to be strong and healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think of mushrooms for skin health, we think of mainly number one being tremolo. Tremolo has research on it stimulating the production of collagen and elastase. So this is what essentially keeps your skin plump, for lack of a better term. And it shows that it can help with hyaluronic acid production, which helps with hydration for your skin. So essentially it's kind of like hydration for your skin from the inside out. Some people like to take tremolo during certain times of year as opposed to taking all year round. I know you and me, Brandi, definitely take tremolo all year round, but even more so in the winter times when, the air is a little bit more dry and cold and our skin's more prone to that dryness. Another one too is chaga mushroom. So chaga being, that master antioxidant. A lot of the research on chaga is more of that antioxidant protection where it can help with, free radicals that could potentially damage the skin, like photosensitivity or for in the sun and having that sort of damage. So a lot of people will like to take chaga for both of those reasons. Now, in addition to that, individuals who have, inflammatory skin conditions or more of like an autoimmune skin condition picture, such as eczema or psoriasis, they will also benefit or have benefited from taking both tremolo and chaga, depending on what their symptoms are. So I would say those are definitely the top two when it comes to mind. But also from there, there's oyster mushroom, which is in our 6 mushroom blend, which is another source of ergothioneine as well. So helping with, that gut support to also reflect outward on the skin as well.
Absolutely. I love the thought of skincare from the inside out because growing up, skincare is something you put on the outside. You wash your face, you put something on your skin. It's all happening from the outside, where we are producing new cells all of the time. So it only makes sense to feed the production system that is going to create what we see. So it can take some patience. You're not going to take tremolo one day and then wake up glowing the next. Even though our tremolo product is called Everglow now, it took me about a month to start noticing the difference. And for sure with tremolo, it was a hydration notice. I tend to dry skin, and tremolo was something that helped me to have just that hydration in the skin naturally.
Me too.
Regardless of what I was using. So, and I'm not fancy. I'm not a girl to use a 9-step skincare regimen. And I haven't paid money for expensive treatments on my skin at all. No judging if that's what you want to do. I think people should do what makes them feel amazing. And I feel good in my wrinkles at my age, and because they're signs that I've lived an amazing, adventurous, happy, emotional life. And do what you will, but it feels good to have hydrated skin that looks radiant. And for sure, mushrooms can help with that, as well as making sure that that skin is your amazing first line of defense of your immune system. So that physical barrier of the skin, those city walls and gates, keeping them healthy is a great way to get started. If something does happen to get in, however it's getting in through the mucous membranes or through the skin, we need some patrolling guards, right? We need the guards. I think of these as like the bouncers at the bar from our younger years.
I like that.
Patrolling, keeping an eye out for suspicious activity. And we have these cells in our body that are called macrophages and neutrophils that are responsible for that patrolling. And these ones I started reading about very early on in my learning about mushrooms, because it's where we get this closest connection. So macrophages are the big eaters in our body. Macrophage literally means big eater. And it's everything. This is the beginning. Like when the immune system needs to start working, it is the macrophage getting the signal to come and eat up whatever it's noticing isn't supposed to be there. That is really starting this incredible domino effect or cascade of all the intricate, detailed, fabulous things the immune system does. So do you want to talk a little bit about macrophages and how we get them healthy and abundant so that the patrolling guards of our immune system can be strong?
Absolutely. So I think the thing with respect to functional mushrooms, we've heard the term immunomodulator. So immunomodulator means that it's modulating the immune system, and what encompasses the immune system are the immune cells, and macrophages are a part of that. So how do functional mushrooms actually enact their activity on the immune system, and how do they actually enforce being immunomodulators? And that is related to the macrophages and how they are able to bind to the receptor, and it's called dectin-1. And so the polysaccharides or the beta-D-glucans are able to sit in this receptor and stimulate the macrophages. And then from there, that is, causing a downstream effect and a byproduct of many different actions in the body and the immune system. So in terms of the research, there are many different areas of health and physiology where functional mushrooms are being studied. And so they haven't identified all of the exact mechanisms, but in terms of how beta-D-glucans and polysaccharides are activating this immune system, they have elucidated that it is able to bind that dectin-1 receptor on the macrophage. And then from there, it's able to initiate that process.
It's like the beta-glucans are saying, let's get this party started, macrophage, go do your thing.
Yeah.
And I love that. So I guess that means beta-glucan percentages in a mushroom supplement product are pretty important to know that they're there. If the beta-glucans are the thing that is getting the immune system to work like you want it to, or to balance or normalize like you need it to, then we should probably know if there's beta-glucans in our mushroom product. And for us, that was really important in the beginning when we were sourcing different mushrooms, and I was taking a lot of mushroom supplements. And when I realized that the first one I was taking had a very, very low percentage of beta-glucans, I realized this is not going to give me the profound effects that I'm looking for. I need to find something with more beta-glucans, or I need to take a whole lot of this really low potency product that I have here. So can you talk a bit about how we get the beta-glucans into the product, how we have products that have a high percentage of beta-glucans?
Absolutely. And so this is where the extraction process is instrumental to having a high percentage of beta-glucans. So another thing too that I will mention is when you hear or see the term beta-glucan, there are many different types of beta-glucans.
Yes.
Right? When people, if you search the term beta-glucan in PubMed or wherever you're looking, Google Scholar, and, you will see that there are cereal beta-glucans, which are from
cereals, grains.
Yeah.
Specifically, I had a customer say to me early on, well, I get beta-glucans in my Cheerios. And I was like, oh gosh, we have to explain that. Yeah. Cereal beta-glucans and fungal beta-glucans are two very different things that act very differently within the body.
Absolutely. And so when you're looking at the immunomodulatory effects, it's from the fungal beta-D-glucans, not from the cereal beta-D-glucans. So that's something, where we talk about further on in this conversation. It's really important when looking at the percentages. But anywho, with beta-D-glucans, what?
Anywho.
To get a high percentage of beta-D-glucans, we need to make sure that the functional mushroom is going through an extraction process. So we've mentioned in earlier episodes that, we start with the fruiting body because the fruiting body has the highest percentage of beneficial compounds. And when we say beneficial compounds, we mean things like beta-D-glucans and other molecules that we test for, like ganoderic acid and hericenones. So we take that fruiting body and then we put it through an extraction process. So all of them should be hot water extracts, meaning it's in hot water. And then some functional mushrooms, in addition to going through that hot water extract, they will also go through an alcohol extraction so that we get those alcohol soluble compounds so they're not left behind. But essentially that extraction process, it's, putting the fruiting body in a pressure cooker, and essentially what that is doing is breaking down the chitin, which is the mushroom cell wall, so that these beneficial compounds are now free and not interlocked and, in jail behind the cell wall or the chitin.
So that's what we would say as bioavailable. We're making them bioavailable. So we're going to grow the mushroom on wood in nature so that the precursors to the beneficial compounds are going to come out of the wood into the mushroom. We're going to harvest that mushroom. We're going to dry it. We're going to grind it down. We're going to cook it up like a big old stew. We call this a decoction in the biz. And then what's happening inside that with the heat from the water is that we're making the medicine bioavailable to us. We're making it something that can be used in the body. So that means extraction is kind of important.
Extremely important, right? And so if you wanting a little bit more information about extraction and the ratios and how to calculate all of the actual doses, go back to a previous episode about that, where we talk about the quantity crude equivalent. But extraction is extremely important to get a high percentage of beta-D-glucans, because this is what initiates that immunomodulatory effect of functional mushrooms.
Okay, so we've got the beta-glucans now. We know we're taking a product that has them in it because we're going to read it on the label. We're going to make sure there's a decent percentage of beta-glucans in the product. And when I say decent, that can range anywhere from 10% beta-glucans all the way up to, now I'm going to say, Health Canada likes to say a maximum of 40% polysaccharides in general, which is to me old technology, because today we can easily find mushrooms like turkey tail and reishi especially having 50+% beta-glucans in a high quality extract product. So if you're taking a 500 milligram capsule of turkey tail and it has 50% beta-glucans, you're taking 250 milligrams of beta-glucans, which are the medicine. Those are the compounds that are going inside your body, finding your immune cells, your macrophages, sitting in the receptors to get them working so that your immune system stays robust and healthy. So after those big immune cells start to do their job, their basic work of just cleaning up, like little vacuum cleaners going around and keeping you healthy, then we get the next kind of stage, like the alarm system. So we had the city walls protecting us, but somebody got in. Thank goodness the patrolling guards, the macrophages, were there to do some cleaning up. But now maybe we need more help. Yeah. And they'll get exhausted. The macrophage doesn't last forever. It can only consume so many bacteria cells before it is exhausted. And then it sounds the alarm. So this is like when the guards detect an intruder, they sound the alarm to alert the rest of the defense force. And in your body, immune cells release chemical signals doing this. And the chemical signals called cytokines, you've heard about, to alert nearby cells of an infection, triggering a new immune response. So we have lots of research in the mushroom industry talking about how these cytokines, whether they are inflammatory cytokines or anti-inflammatory cytokines, we have both, and we need a balance of both, can be triggered to do what they're doing. And I think, we hear about, through the pandemic, having a cytokine storm. And that makes people feel fearful when we put those terms together. Like, we are going to have too many of these. If we take mushrooms, we're going to start a storm of cytokines and it's going to be awful. But that's the immunomodulatory magic. The intelligence of mushrooms is they're adaptogens in the end. They're normalizers, they're balancers. So we're not stimulating the immune system, or people will say they boost the immune system. No, we don't want it to boost it. We want it to activate it so that it can work to do what it innately knows how to do. And that's just what's happening there. And then the defense forces can mobilize and go out and neutralize the threat. So that's that first part, the innate immune system. The second part of the immune system would be the adaptive immune system. And if this system had a slogan, it would be like, always ready to learn and remember. What I wish every student I ever taught back in the day was always ready to learn and remember. So this system isn't going to react. This system needs to be told. It needs to be asked. It needs to be activated. So the cells that make up this system require activation, and then they respond to a specific pathogen. So if the innate immune system is non-specific, this is the very specific part of the immune system. So highly specialized strategic defense force, like an elite military unit with sophisticated intelligence, highly trained soldiers. This part gets very detailed and it's very cool. But essentially, this is where we're going to find our B cells that produce antibodies, tag pathogens for destruction, or our T cells that can directly attack infected cells. And this becomes really important in chronic disease. We hear about them. We hear about how we want T cells when we're looking in cancer research and all kinds of things. And then it goes beyond that to the memory and preparedness department, where we want to know that when we've been sick with something once, or we've been introduced to some form of bacteria, that our immune system has done the work to learn about that and to remember and store that information so that that same thing can't make us sick over and over again. And that's where the beautiful intelligence comes on. So we know that mushrooms affect this whole intricate immune system by that beta-glucan activation of the macrophage that starts this whole system that works its way through the city to keep the city healthy. So we know that we want a healthy immune system so that we can protect ourselves against infections. Nobody wants to be sick. If we do get sick, having a healthy immune system can help you to aid in the recovery. If you get sick and you're sick for a month, it's probably because your immune system wasn't functioning well in the first place, and then you happened to be introduced to whatever got you sick. So we're going to get sick in our lives. But if you can make those shorter and shorter, sick for a couple of days feels a lot better than sick for a week. A healthy immune system can do that. A healthy immune system reduces our risk of the chronic diseases it just enhances our overall well-being and our optimization of life. So we know that if we exercise regularly, if we get enough sleep, if we manage our stress, and if we eat well, the things we say all of the time, those all contribute to a healthy immune system. Desiree, is there anything else that we can think of, other mushrooms that we haven't talked about, that will help us to support our immune system?
Absolutely. So with our immune system and with functional mushrooms, I mean, there are two, probably three that really come to mind. Number one being turkey tail, just with all of the research. Turkey tail is probably the most researched functional mushroom, and how turkey tail can help with immunomodulating the immune system and helping to support individuals with chronic conditions. Coming back to what you said earlier, Brandi, about, we can't expect us to never get sick, right? I think that's unrealistic for us. Like when we're thinking about whatever chronic condition that we have, I think it might be unrealistic for us to think we're never going to get sick, or I'm never going to experience a flare, or never going to have this symptom ever again. And maybe that is possible for some people, but I think it's all about, like you said, our immune system and our bodies being adaptable to that, right? If we are getting sick, is it shorter? Is it less intense? And I will say that, and I think I can speak for you on this, like with taking functional mushrooms, that has been something that you and I have noticed too. Like when people around us are sick, if we're taking a functional mushroom like turkey tail, we're noticing that, okay, maybe I'm either not getting sick, or if I do get sick, it's way less intense and I move through it much quicker.
Yeah. I've been sick one time in the last 4 years. One time.
Yeah.
It makes me
It's
grateful.
remarkable.
But there's that feeling that you get when you're like, oh, am I getting sick? And I know for all of us around here, when that hits, you're taking the maximum acceptable dose of turkey tail. It's the one we're all grabbing for. We actually have people, friends of ours, who show up at the door. My kids are sick and I just dropped them off at wherever they're being cared for the day. And I need some turkey tail right now because I don't want to get it either. And it works.
Absolutely.
It does. It's giving your immune system that just extra strong defense force. A few more macrophages on board to go and do that cleaning up definitely can stop us from getting sick when we feel it coming on.
Absolutely. So the other one too is going to be reishi. So there's a ton of research. Reishi is also very heavily studied in terms of, in comparison to all the other functional mushrooms. So, reishi, a lot of the research looking at reishi, similarly to turkey tail, is looking at balance of specific cells. So for example, with conditions that are more Th1 dominant versus Th2 dominant, these are T helper cells. And so reishi has been shown to be really helpful for that. Now, in addition to that too, and we're going to touch on some of these factors later in the episode, but reishi is also great for sleep. Reishi is also an adaptogen, right? So looking at those factors as well, not only just how it is directly benefiting the immune system, but also benefiting us indirectly, so to speak, in the other areas of our life, or benefiting us from the foundations of health in that perspective. And then another functional mushroom with respect to immunomodulating activity that I would say kind of the big three would be chaga. Just because of how chaga is able to act as an antioxidant, but then in research too, it's showing an improvement in inflammatory autoimmune conditions and things like that. I know you've mentioned you've had great success using chaga for your psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis and all of that. And so I would say those three are the big three for the immune system.
Okay, let's dive into it then. Autoimmune disease. So we can't have an episode about the immune system without what everybody is talking about. Autoimmune disease, and how is that related to that innate and adaptive immune system stuff going on? Like what's happening then when we have this society, when we look at North America, I think the stat is an estimated 100 million North Americans with autoimmune disease today. I'm going to say that again. 100 million. Do you know how many zeros that is? Oh, with autoimmune disease. So sometimes the immune system can malfunction. So all that great stuff we talked about within the city and the patrolling guards and all of this intelligence and the memory cells, sometimes they don't work. Sometimes there's a malfunction. And what happens is that those healthy cells are getting attacked by those amazing immune cells. And what the heck is going on? So if you have an autoimmune disease, it means that your immune system stops protecting your body from invaders and instead starts attacking healthy tissues and cells. And that has been a lived experience for me. From the age of 15, when I developed psoriasis, for sure, I thought, I haven't done anything to get this rash on my skin, these patches of flaky skin, but was diagnosed with psoriasis that then turned into psoriatic arthritis, and arthritis that is psoriasis essentially attacking the joints inside. So that stat is horrifying to me because I think it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Together, it's more than people have heart disease, cancer, and diabetes combined. So it's an epidemic.
Well, think about people in your life that are, your closest relationships. How many have an autoimmune condition?
Yeah. Let's talk about them. So, and I think this is maybe why we don't have anybody really knowing what to do. Like, a general practitioner is not necessarily able to help you with your autoimmune condition because it gets broken down. So neurologists are dealing with people who have MS. That's an autoimmune condition, an autoimmune disease. The GI doctors are dealing with people who have colitis. That's an autoimmune condition. Rheumatologists are dealing with people with rheumatoid arthritis. That's an autoimmune disease. Dermatologists like mine are dealing with people with psoriasis. That's an autoimmune condition. Thyroid doctors are dealing with Graves' disease and Hashimoto's. The list goes on and on. Type 1 diabetes. These are all autoimmune diseases. It's not one thing. And because it gets spread across these specialties, really there's not one expert or one answer to it. So how do we deal with it? What do we do when this amazing immune system is having a malfunction and it's not working? And I think the unfortunate thing is that most Western doctors will just provide medication to reduce inflammation. So if we go back to that first part of the innate immune system and we get that slice, though, we get cut, our body is going to send inflammation there because it is sending all of those special forces. It's sending all of those guards. It's sending all of that intelligence to start healing in that area. So the inflammation is understood. It's needed. It's there for a reason. We accept it. We know it will eventually go away. It's just your body doing its work. But in an autoimmune disease like the one I had, we often have a lot of inflammation that's unexplained. I didn't do anything. Why am I inflamed? And then Western medicine just wants to say, well, we'll just get rid of the inflammation and then you'll feel better. But it doesn't address the real issue or the cause of that inflammation. And then we're not treating the cause. We're using medications to treat symptoms, and we get into a whole mess like I did. So there's trouble with this first line defense. There's trouble with these medications. To me, there's really two big issues with just medicating the inflammation. And that is the expense, the cost of it, the cost to the person or the cost to our countries. And then there's the side effects. So we're talking about immunosuppressants here. So immunosuppressants are often what are prescribed after we fail on some of the easier things. So a lot of people will take like ibuprofen to reduce inflammation. Again, we're not addressing the cause. And for people who have a real autoimmune flare, it's not enough. We're not going to get relief from that. So immunosuppressants are drugs that prevent your immune system from attacking healthy cells and tissues by mistake. And healthcare providers often prescribe immunosuppressants to treat certain autoimmune diseases and reduce inflammation, reduce all kinds of things. But what happens is these medications can increase your risk of infection because your immune system isn't working anymore as it should, because those drugs are just shutting down your immune system so it's not attacking anymore. So let's talk about the cost first. So the biologics are the best thing we have in the world right now for an autoimmune disease. These are like the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. These are drugs that offer the most effective means to treat a variety of conditions. And often these are anti-TNF alpha drugs. So tumor necrosis factor can be something that causes inflammation. So the drug that I took was an anti-TNF alpha, essentially going into the body, encapsulating the TNF alpha that's causing inflammation for whatever reason, and getting rid of it all. And what happens is we actually need some of that. We need some of that because the drug that I took, when I took it, I got skin cancer because I needed that TNF around to be helping to fight the cancer cells. That is an immune cell that's needed as part of that intricate system. And I was completely wiping it out. So I got skin cancer again, and I got skin cancer again. And I knew, well, this is not a long-term solution for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it also wasn't a long-term solution financially, because the biologic that I took cost 1,600 Canadian dollars per month.
Wow.
And that means that it costs about $20,000 a year. That's a salary for some people. And I took it for 13 years. So if you do the math, that's $250,000. I, cost this country, really, because for me, that was paid for. I was in the study, and then Fair Pharmacare took over, and $250,000 was paid so that I could be on this biologic that was never designed to address whatever the root cause of my condition was. It was just designed to take away the inflammation, which felt great. It felt great. But is this really a viable solution? Because I'm one person. And if everybody with an autoimmune condition were prescribed these pharmaceuticals, then what would that picture look like? And when we do the math, so if we look at those 100 million North Americans with an autoimmune condition, and we say to them, you're going to take these drugs for your lifetime, because that's the plan. I was never offered an escape. There was no, I remember asking a rheumatologist, how long do I have to take this? Oh, you're going to take this for the rest of your life. Yeah. That's a lot of money. So we're looking at 100 million people at $20,000 per year. And if they're going to take it for about 25 years, when I did the math on that, that's trillions of dollars. That's trillions of dollars. Can we afford this? Can we afford this as a society? I don't think that we can. So cost is a major issue if we're only looking at a pharmaceutical to treat an autoimmune condition. The other issue is the side effects. And we know that immunosuppressants weaken this immune system. So you have a higher risk of viral, bacterial, fungal infections. And it's not just that. Desiree and I were looking at this the other day. You might have to help me here, Des.
So what is this, Brandi?
Well, this, let's lift it up all the way. This is the leaflet that came inside the drug that I took for 13 years. These are the side effects. And if we just look at one or two of the side effects, there's another page.
Oh, it's double-sided.
It's double-sided. Really, what's not on here? So it's cancer, it's heart disease, it is skin infections. I don't know how many times I was tested for tuberculosis, which had not been in my vocabulary before that. We have all kinds of serious warnings and precautions that go on: liver problems, allergic reactions, cancers, congestive heart failure, neurological events, blood problems, don't get a vaccination, your liver, it goes on and on and on. The side effects, I don't know. Des, what do you have to say about that? Because you can tell how I feel.
That's a lot of informed consent. I have a question. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with, we've all been prescribed a pharmaceutical, whether it's an antibiotic, whatever it is. Did you get full informed consent of all of the possible? I think it's different with a clinical trial because, there's a whole process there. But think about pharmaceuticals that you've been prescribed in the past. Have you been given informed consent about all of those things from your doctor? I know I personally have not. Right?
I think it's such an unknown, and I think it's just washed over as maybe one person had that adverse reaction, and you're going to have that with everything. But it's so not true. And I'm somebody that had many adverse events over that time, but the drug worked so well that I wanted to believe that there wouldn't be anything else.
Well, of course. And I think at some point too, when you are suffering enough and your symptoms are severe enough or intense enough and it's affecting your quality of life, it totally makes sense why, you would take something like that to improve your quality of life so that you can be present for your family, so that you can be present as a mom, so that you can do the things that light you up and, pursue your passions. It makes sense. Yeah. But I think for some people, it's important to remember that we are the CEOs of our own health and our medical team. They are a part of our team, but the ones who are making the decisions is us.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? And it took me so long to gather up my own confidence and voice to start asking the hard questions. What is happening when I put this drug on in my body? Why am I having this side effect? What are going to be the long-term effects of it? Is there an alternative? And I was told, no, there's not an alternative. And when I started to do my own research, when I started working with a naturopathic doctor and I started looking at all the things that we can do, I was inspired and I was empowered to say,
Yeah.
I'm breaking up with you and I'm going to find another way. Now, I had skin cancer 3 times and a seizure before I got to that stage. I just hope that everybody doesn't have to go that far before they stand up and say, I needed that pharmaceutical to put out the fire. I would take that pharmaceutical again, maybe in a much smaller dose, to put out a fire in the future if I had to, because we don't want to walk around with inflammation. We don't. If our immune system is acting up, we do need to gather ourselves so that we can make good decisions and then come up with a plan to address the cause in the first place. Why did I get psoriasis? Why did that turn into psoriatic arthritis? And this is where we get into this famous saying, everybody's saying it, right? Genes load the gun and your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So there is someone else in my family with psoriasis that turned into psoriatic arthritis who's older than me. And we both got psoriatic arthritis at the same time, even though this person is about 30 years older than me. So does that tell us that something environmental or something emotional that happened in our lives was that trigger that turned on the gene to do that? And if the trigger could be turned on, can it be turned off? Yes.
And you know what's, so I want to interject here and just say that in clinical practice, there are so many times where people are, dealing with a chronic condition, an autoimmune condition. And, I've seen it myself where it's like, oh, like when did this start? And sometimes we just don't even like put the two together. Right. It's like, well, when did this start? Oh, well, it was around this time. I was this age. What was going on around that age, like in your life?
Yeah.
And maybe we don't think that something else could cause it.
No.
But oftentimes, for a lot of people, it could be some sort of stress or emotional trigger or a divorce or their parents splitting, like things like that, where it's like, oh yeah, no, but it can't be that.
And that happens to everyone.
It has to be much more complex.
Yes.
No, I think we're undervaluing how all of these other things really impact us.
Yeah. This is where that ACE score, which we talked about previous episodes as well, becomes so handy for a health practitioner to say, let's go back and see what could have been the beginning of this problem so that we can address what your triggers might be so that you can manage this without pharmaceuticals being the only remedy because of the cost and the side effects. That's it. It's the cost and the side effects. And who's benefiting with all of that money, with those trillions of dollars for one drug? Who's benefiting from that? Because the people that are benefiting are sure not teaching us about how to eat well, how to sleep well, how to move our bodies and do all of those things, but they for sure have the most money. So there's something else going on here. And we really do have to say, okay, our genetics are our genetics. Experts will say that probably accounts for about 30% of what's going to happen. And then there's lifestyle and environment. And if that means that's 70% of what's left, that makes me very hopeful. Very hopeful that
it's a large percentage.
It's a large percentage. So I think when we look at this opportunity to affect our lifestyle and our environment, and this is where mushrooms come in, right? This is where mushrooms come in because they can affect our lifestyle. And for sure, our environment around us is hard to change. But when we know which mushroom can match with what we've been exposed to, what's happening around us, I think we really can start to be that CEO of our own health.
Absolutely. I think too, when people come to us and they say, here's what's going on, A, B, C, D, E. And for us, typically what we're saying is go to the root cause. Or what is your area of greatest need?
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes we think let's say it's psoriasis. I have psoriasis. I need help with psoriasis. What's the mushroom for psoriasis? Okay, well then can we look at the deeper layer? What maybe is going on that is triggering all of this that's happening?
Yeah.
Right? What are the foundations of health for you? What is your sleep like? What are all these things like? It doesn't mean that it's, poor sleep is the cause of psoriasis, but it really helps to manage the level of your bucket.
Yes.
Right? When we talk about autoimmune conditions, and if you've seen a naturopathic doctor, maybe you've heard them say like, how full is your bucket, or your bucket is full. And essentially what that means is your lifestyle is what fills that bucket. it's not filling up the bucket and like, oh, what fills my cup and makes me feel good. It's a little bit different of an analogy in the sense that if we can have our foundations minimize the amount of stress, so stress could be, pesticide exposure, or it could be emotional stress and all of that. If we can have our foundations minimize that so that our bucket actually isn't that full and it's lower, right? There's less amount in that bucket, then that can help us with the symptoms. Sometimes it's like, oh, I wasn't feeling good or whatever. And then this little thing it was like
puts you over the edge.
The straw that broke the camel's back. And that's
the drop that spilled over the bucket.
Yeah, it was the drop that allowed that bucket to spill over. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think those things are really important.
And I think we see that in our community. We've seen people that have been doing so well, and then spring hits and allergies become that trigger that I was doing so well. But allergy season is here, and and then we say, take some reishi. Or we see people that I was doing so well, and they're just like tipping into that perimenopause, menopausal stage, and our hormones become imbalanced. And that's the trigger. So can we look at mushrooms to help us balance with hormones? Yes, we can. We have whole protocols for that. People that do get an infection, right? You get some kind of a cold, you get what's going around, and then your autoimmune, however that presents, has a bit of a flare because you're sick. For me, I know exactly what my triggers are. And I love that I do, because my initial reaction was to change my diet because there was the most information about that. And when I look back to the very beginning, I was not eating well. I have talked many times about how many mini wheats I consumed in that time of my life. So I consumed a lot of grain. I consumed a lot of dairy. And what is it? Was it pesticides on that grain? Right? Like, thank you, glyphosate. Is it hormones in the dairy at that time? Because the quality of the dairy I was consuming was not something that I thought about or people were even thinking about at that time. So what was it at 15 years old that I was doing that was this trigger for me? I just initially decided it's probably diet. So I'm going to go to diet and I'm going to manage this without pharmaceuticals, but I'm going to manage it with my diet. But that became very restrictive for me. I eliminated everything, all grain, all dairy, all meat. I got rid of the nightshades. I got rid of sugar. I stopped drinking alcohol completely. I got rid of everything. And that's not joyful. And it's not realistic, and it's not sustainable. So coming forward now, 4 years later, almost 5 years later, I still am very thoughtful about what I put in my mouth. I do this whole I'm going to put it in my mouth. Is this going to cause disease or is this going to cure disease? And that's an easy decision to make for me. And I live by an intuitive eating really practice where if I'm out with my friends and we're enjoying a birthday, I'm going to have that birthday cake. And there's probably dairy and gluten and for sure sugar in there. And is it going to kill me? No. Am I going to feel it the next day? Maybe, but there's an awareness now. Is that something that's a trigger for me? If I'm very stressed, eating a tomato might be something that's triggering for me. It's just having this awareness and finding balance. And what I do for my diet to help me stay healthy and keep my immune system happy is very different from what Desiree does. And from what my husband does, and for sure from what my children do. So you have to eat for you and eat in a way that still makes you feel joyful. So the elimination diets that are sometimes the answer to me can be a bit limiting for people. And I think it's a great place to start so that you can know what some of your triggers are. But for me, my goal is to be able to eat whatever I want and to do that in moderation and to do that with what is realistic for my life.
Yeah. Adaptability and flexibility.
Adaptability and flexibility. So if we go from there, so after you're thinking about food as possibly something that you could change in order to experience change, can we talk about what would make sense next, which is blood sugar management, metabolic function, because what you're eating is for sure affecting what your blood sugar is doing.
Absolutely. And when our blood sugar is also not flexible, that can cause inflammation as well, right? So the functional mushrooms that have the most research for supporting blood sugar and metabolic health, it's going to be maitake, it's going to be chaga, and reishi. So if you want a little bit more in-depth details, go back to the previous episode where I dove into it there. But with both chaga and maitake, I did discuss how both of them can help with insulin resistance, because insulin resistance essentially is when our cells are not as responsive to glucose and to changes in blood sugar. And so when our peripheral tissues or our tissues in general are not, that causes insulin resistance. And then that's where we're not as metabolically flexible. So maybe if you haven't eaten in a while, you're like, I'm really hangry, or maybe you're experiencing symptoms of hypoglycemia. Maybe that's causing an increase in inflammation. So managing your blood sugar is extremely important. It's important for hormones. It's important for energy. It's important for brain function, all of that.
All of that.
It's a foundation.
Okay. So if you have an autoimmune condition and you're thinking about your food carefully and really paying attention to yourself and you're managing your blood sugar, and you're good, the next thing is probably movement. So important. Exercise, movement, activity. And I know that when I first entered the clinical trial that I did for the immunosuppressant drug, I had 28 sites of inflammation on my body. I did not want to move. I didn't want to get out of bed.
No kidding.
I could barely walk down the stairs. I had a 6-month-old baby. I was not a happy camper. And if someone invited me to go do their HIIT workout, they were going to hear from me how unhappy I was about that. But now I realize if I had tried to move more, I probably would have felt better. We have to move in order to feel healthy. We have to do that regularly. And people with arthritis, I know how hard that is, but I am telling you, when you ask your body to do what it can do, push it a little bit outside of that comfort zone, you are allowing blood to rush into the places that feel stiff, and that blood is delivering oxygen there. And this can be so powerfully healing for us. So just moving your body could be your prescription. Go for a walk. I love yoga. Desiree makes me lift weights all the time. We do Pilates together. We play a lot of ping pong. It doesn't have to be a fancy big workout, but just moving your body. And I wasn't doing anything to help me inspire me to move at that time. But now I know there's a mushroom that would have been helpful for me back in those days. Do you want to talk about how mushrooms can help us feel like getting going and having movement be part of our cure?
Absolutely. So there's two. The first one I know that you're thinking of is cordyceps for a couple of different reasons. Number one, cordyceps helps with energy production. So we think of it as like the energy mushroom, or athletes will think of it as like their go-to mushroom, just because of how it can help with increasing VO2 max. So their aerobic capacity, their lung capacity. It personally helped me with my asthma. I've had exercise-induced asthma since I was very little. I played, collegiate sports. And when I started taking cordyceps, I no longer have to take my inhaler when I am playing sports, which is cool. So
cool.
Not only that, but from like a pain perspective and moving and all of that, cordyceps increases ATP, and ATP is the energy currency of our cells. So, helping in the morning or helping throughout the day, having that stable energy is extremely important. Is extremely important, because think back to maybe when you're more inflamed or you have more pain. Do you have more or less energy?
Less.
Definitely less.
Definitely less.
Because the resources in our body are going towards managing whatever it's managing, as opposed to, I'm going to go for a walk, right? So helping with that energy. Now, also from there, cordyceps has some research to help with inflammation, and then also to help with pain. A lot of people in our community who have arthritis or joint pain will take cordyceps for supporting that. And then further to that, chaga is the other functional mushroom that comes to mind. A lot of people as well in our community who have arthritis or joint pain will notice that taking chaga consistently will help with that pain.
Because it acts on TNF alpha.
There you go. Right. So if you can just help with that pain a little bit so that you can start to move, and also remembering that sometimes it has to get just a little bit worse to get better, right? If you're starting movement, and that doesn't mean a HIIT workout, it could be, or it could just be a walk or something gentle just to move your body. Your body might feel sore. It might not feel amazing right away. And
start low and go slow.
Start low and go slow.
And what that literally means slow for me, because sometimes I just don't want to get off my mat. but we can do a full 30-minute workout on our mat, and we've moved literally every muscle in our body. That's why I love Pilates. That's why I love yoga. So start low, go slow. And as you're talking about these like medicines, cordyceps and chaga for these things, my brain's still like side effects, cost. Okay, cost is great. We're not spending trillions of dollars. And the side effects can be good side effects. And if you're taking cordyceps for pain or for energy, the side effect is going to be libido support. And that's a great side effect. And if you're taking chaga to manage inflammation, the side effect is gut health. I love that about mushrooms. You might be taking it for one thing, but there's all these other benefits that come along with it because of the entourage effect from the amazing amount of beneficial bioactive compounds in any of the mushrooms. So we're eating well, we're managing our blood sugar, we're moving. The next thing that we're going to talk about is stress reduction. You've got to manage your stress. This is a trigger for me. I know it's a trigger for other people I know that have different autoimmune conditions. Stress is going to get us. It's going to get us, and we have to have a plan ahead of time for it. So, I love to meditate. I'm meditating every morning, sometimes again in the afternoon, especially if we're doing it together. It's better together. We meditate here at the office in a group. That's my choice. I do that because meditation just relaxes my whole body. There's no stress during, and there's no stress for a long time after I'm finished that. And it's just gotten better and better with time. But there's lots of ways that you could choose to manage your stress. And there are mushrooms that can help you with the activities you're choosing to manage stress. So let's start with meditation. If I'm somebody who says, I want to start meditating to manage my stress. I've read all of the research. I know it actually really works. It helps to lower blood pressure. It helps with heart health. It does all of these amazing things, but I just can't meditate. I just can't get my body to come out of fight or flight long enough for my nervous system to settle long enough to sit down and do the thing. Is there a mushroom that can help with that?
I'd say there's two actually, but number one I would say would be reishi. We know of reishi being very calming, inducing that relaxed state. That's why a lot of people will take it before bed. It's not a sedative, but it really helps you transition into a calm state. That's more optimal for sleep. A lot of people in our neurodivergent part of our community will say that reishi is very helpful for them to just be more zen and chill. Reishi is also an adaptogen. So it's working on the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis. This is what modulates cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. So if we're helping to modulate that and helping our body physiologically deal with stress, then maybe we can perceive less stress and we don't feel like we're holding it in our body as much. When you're in a more calm state, it's easier for you to focus and drop into meditation. And then another functional mushroom that can be helpful for meditation is lion's mane. Again, with our, neurospicy or neurodivergent community, or those with ADHD or anxiety, mood, etc., they've found that lion's mane has been really helpful because they're able to, same thing, focus and be more productive. So I think the combination personally for those two with meditation, I think is just like a trifecta.
It's reminding me of back at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about skin. And you were talking about tremolo and chaga, like the powerhouse duo for skin. And if we're looking at meditation, it's reishi and lion's mane are the powerhouse duo. Like they're always better together. They're always better, complementing each other, enhancing the benefits in the compounds of one another. It's so cool. While we're talking about stress and reishi, sleep would be another factor that if people are not sleeping well enough, I know in my university years, I loved to dance. And that often happened late into the night. And sometimes I was staying up even after I got home to finish assignments or to get up early to go to school in the morning. And I was not getting that recommended 7 to 9 hours. 7 to 9 hours, my friends, is what we need to be getting for optimal health. I was not getting that for sure. And that's likely a trigger. Not getting enough sleep, especially if it's repeatedly, we're getting into bad habits. Sleep is something that for sure can help you with some of those symptoms, or might be the trigger for you that is setting things off. So we know about the research and we've talked about it before. Reishi is going to be the one that it can help us to get a good, healthy sleep routine going.
Yeah, routine, big, right? If you want to go to bed at the same time every night, that's going to help with your circadian rhythm. And reishi can help you maximize that same bedtime every single night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we're going to just finish by talking about mind-body connection, because the mind and the body are not separate, right?
No, they're not.
What affects
Newsflash.
one? If it affects one, it is affecting the other one,
Yeah.
right? Mind and body connection. This is the dynamic relationship between an individual's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and your physical health. So this is psychoneuroimmunology. I love that word so much.
That's a cool term.
When I grow up, I want to be a psychoneuroimmunologist, Desiree.
Okay.
So this is a field that studies how psychological factors, the nervous system and the immune system all interact together. So we've talked quite a bit about the nervous system in other episodes, talking about the brain, and now the immune system here. They're not separate. They're going to affect one another. So this study shows us that stress, anxiety, other emotional states can impact our immune function and make the body more susceptible to illness when things are not in balance. So all of the things that we talked about, stress and your health, chronic stress can lead to so many things: hypertension, heart disease, digestive issues. Stress activates the body's fight or flight response. This releases those hormones Desiree talked about, cortisol and adrenaline, which, if persistently elevated, really negatively affect our physical health. So it's really you looking at what's the real issue here. Is it something in my body that's going on? Like, is it that food that I'm putting in? Is it that my hormones are out of balance? Is it that I'm not sleeping? Or is it something that is more in the mind that can be addressed? And I think this is something that it's a hard thing to get our Western medical practitioners to come on board with us and address without pharmaceuticals. And I have a very close family member who's going through this, and it's been really hard. Ooh, I get emotional right there. To just, recognize that we are people who are going to have mental health concerns throughout our lifetime. We're going to go through trauma. We're going to go through hard times. And when we are told that the only tool in the toolkit is an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety, so we take it because we just want to feel better, and then we can't get off of it, and that really affects your quality of life. That's not okay.
No, it's not. And the reality is that there are many other things that can help to contribute, and we talked about this earlier in the episode with respect to autoimmune conditions, right? Where if you're suffering enough, you will take something because you just want to feel better. And that's so understandable, right? Think about all of the individuals that we know who are on antidepressants, or maybe you don't know that they're on an antidepressant, but they could be.
Almost everyone I know.
There are so many people, and it's not that they don't want to get better. It's just that sometimes they don't know that there are other tools in the toolbox. And I think with regards to stress, we often undervalue stress because we think, yeah, it's just stress, but we make it so much more complicated than it needs to be. And I think not only just conventional medical doctors, but I think just us as a society as well, right? We don't know. And I think this is the whole purpose with Eversio Wellness and the Eversio experience is Eversio means change. And that's the Eversio experience, is realizing that you have the capabilities within yourself and you are smart enough, right? You are kind enough. You are determined enough to change your health. And there are other tools, and stress is such a big one, right? It's such a big factor, whether you have an autoimmune condition or whether you don't. Stress is a really big thing that affects so many of us. Like think if you are somebody who suffers from headaches, for example. Okay, well, do you get more headaches when you're stressed?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a headache disorder, just things like that. It is a big factor.
Yeah. So I think we need to just recognize that. And again, I'm going to come back to mindfulness practices, meditation. And when I say mindfulness practices, that can mean breath work. That can mean just stopping and noticing our breath. People that are anxious, that suffer from anxiety and are headed toward an anxiety attack can literally stop it with their breath alone. Like, it's such a powerful tool that we all have with us all the time, and it's free. We need to learn how to use it when we're feeling well, so that we have that available to us, so that the only answer isn't a pharmaceutical. Your breath can be your pharmaceutical. Meditation, we have a literal pharmacy of chemicals inside our brain. inside our body that are producing serotonin. We're producing melatonin. We're producing so many of these oxytocin, these beautiful chemicals that are the pharmaceuticals inside of you meant to make us feel well. But we do have to learn how to produce them, how to make them abundant enough inside of us. So it's all of the same things that we said. Getting natural light in the morning so that we can start a circadian rhythm that helps us get to bed at night so we can get those 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Such a simple thing. If we're not doing that, can we try changing that? All of these little things. So I just think that the mind-body connection is something we can't ignore when it comes to our immune health, to autoimmune disease, to the pain management that can be part of that. That
absolutely.
Inflammation is painful. I have been there. Nobody wants to sit in it. It is very easy to just take a painkiller, but we're not addressing the issue, and it's going to come back if we don't think, what is my plan for that? So I hope that whoever's listening and needs to hear it, it can be done. It can be done without pharmaceuticals. It might not be today. I know it's really hard to come off of a pharmaceutical if you're on one. It's not something you do in a day, but it is something that you have the right to ask your medical practitioner for help with coming off of, if you want to do things and try things differently and start seeking the root cause of your condition.
Yeah, and I would even go further to that, and I would say if your health practitioner is not hearing you or listening to you and supporting you, fire them.
Absolutely. It's okay to break up with him. I did. And I still think that her human is a beautiful human being, but was doing their job the way they were trained to do their job and just didn't have the information that I needed. I had to seek information from inside of me and outside from a team, nutritionists and naturopathic doctors and yoga instructors and counselors and therapists and elders and healers and all of these beautiful humans around. We can't put all of our eggs in the white lab coat basket and say that person's the boss of me and I have to do what they say.
Absolutely.
It's time to do our own thing and to really work on changing our thoughts. Your beliefs become your thoughts, right? Your beliefs become your thoughts. I'm going to read a quote from Gandhi. Your beliefs become your thoughts. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. I value my health. I value my health, and my good health has given me this. I know what my destiny will be. I know I'm excited to live out the rest of my life. And it all started with the belief that I could change, right? That we could change lives through fungi. And that started really changing the thoughts in my mind. And when you get your mind on your side and you start being really an optimist and believing that you can do this, everything's going to change. And it's going to be great.
Absolutely. And I also want to say too, for, the people who are just as touched as I was when, you were being vulnerable and sharing that, I think it's amazing for people to hear and to see, because you are not the only person experiencing that. There are so many other people, and, people really want help and connection and to feel supported. And I think some people who are struggling through that right now will feel comforted by you sharing that, to know that, your heart is in the right place and people want to get better.
Yeah.
And
don't give up. Don't give up. You can do it. You can do it. People are doing it right now, and you can be one of them. Okay. Let's end the episode on a positive note with some reviews. So we're astounded every day. The incredible reviews that we get on our website really lift us up and keep us going and make us do a happy dance every single day. So I'll let you start, Des.
I'm going to start. Okay. So my review is going to be on 6 mushroom blend. So this is from Christy G. Thank you, Christy. She says, perimenopause symptoms improved. She goes, I was looking for natural ways to support my body through perimenopause, and Eversio was recommended. I lead a clean, healthy, and active lifestyle, but was starting to experience some uncomfortable symptoms of perimenopause. I started taking the 6 mushroom blend daily in the morning, blended in my coffee. No taste, blends in beautifully. After 3 weeks of using daily, my symptoms have certainly improved and the start of my period was easier to manage. I should also mention that I've had a lifelong aversion to mushrooms. My biggest worry was taste, but I can honestly say there is no taste, and the 6 mushroom blend actually adds a delicious, warm, nutty aroma to my favorite coffee. Will definitely keep using it as part of my wellness routine. That is so cool.
I love
That's jam-packed. That's a jam-packed
love
review.
that.
I love it.
People do ask us every day, what do mushroom extracts taste like? And yeah, it's a hard thing. Some people will say it's an umami, like that other,
that
right?
extra dimension.
Yeah. And she just describes it so beautifully. And I love that she's putting it in her coffee. And that's why she's not tasting it, because coffee can have a bitter astringent flavor. And it's such a nice pair. It's another layer in there. Funny enough, my review is also on the 6 mushroom blend. So a little synchronicity today. And mine is from Stephanie V from the US. And she titled her review, Feel the Difference. She says, I'm on my 3rd month of consuming the Rejuvenate blend, which is now called the 6 mushroom blend. I feel a difference in my body. I've always struggled with feeling highs and lows of my blood sugar balance. I noticed that this is not happening anymore. I feel hunger instead of drastic hangriness. I hear you. I am able to choose food rationally instead of shoveling in everything in sight. I have much better mental recall and less brain fog. My moods feel more stable. This blend is absolutely worth a try. I am enjoying many positive changes. Thank you, Eversio. Well, no, thank you, Stephanie, because when you try a blend of mushrooms, you never know like which mushroom is doing what, but she does such a great job of hitting them. Less brain fog. That's the lion's mane. That's the ergothioneine in the oyster. All of those blood sugar balance things. That's your maitake. That's your chaga. She is really somebody who is experiencing all of the great things. And notice that it's after 3 months, right? It's something that they work best with prolonged use, and she's given it the time to do that. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing, and we wish you continued success. And with that, we will sign off of this episode of the Eversio Experience podcast. Please check the links below. There's a discount code in there for you, and you can come and find us on social media or visit our website to learn more about all of the mushrooms that we talked to today. And do reach out if you have any questions. We thank you so much for listening to us. Goodbye, everyone.